going through the questions of the project team building during the questions of the sphere of influence of the project managers, we have mentioned about the social environment, the environment on which actually our project is supposed to be implemented. And right now we're going to talk about the project environment's components evaluation. And such a sphere of the interests inside the project planning, which are coming through the understanding of interests of stakeholders and the values which society have been provided. It's also important for the vision of the social changes which our project can be faced on, and our project can start during the implementation and afterwards, after our project have been implemented on our time scheduling. So projects are influenced by a multitude of factors which can be external or internal to the organization, to your team right now responsible for its management and execution. Think a little bit and you will see that the team on which you are working has this external and internal influence of the factors which are coming from, of course, external, the outside, the social environment, and internal also the environment which you are creating for yourself. It's also the social environment. You see, in the sphere of sociology, both the internal factors as the part of the small social group environment and external factors as the more bigger social community grouping. So that is why the important thing for the project manager is to recognize what these factors are and how they impact the project during the various phases from inception to final handover, or even disposal, sometimes disposal of the project, because of these factors, because of these environmental components have influence, and as final product has no connection with the social interest, has no connection with the stakeholders, implementation procedure, and maybe the values which were internal in your team, it can be disposal and it come to the false result. These external or internal influences are known as the project context or project environment. And let's see the components of this project environment, and we are starting from the external factors. The external factors making up this environment are the client or customer, various external consultants, contractors, suppliers, competitors, for sure at the part of the providing the medical service. We'll have the competitors on the certain region or on the certain position which our product have been provided. So that is why the competitors are also the important environment or important external factors which we're supposed to follow and we're supposed to get the information about the competitors. Politicians, for sure, politicians on the national and local level, national and local government agencies, they are playing an important role in the formation of the legal base for the implementation of the certain product which you are getting on. And especially in the sphere of the medicine, we're supposed to follow these external factors of the politician and the legal changes. Public utilities which we can use during the implementation of the projects. Pressure groups of those social community which are protesting, which are getting in conflict, which have tensions with the project goals of our certain activity, over those people who we can see as the partners, whom we can see as the sponsors maybe in the budgeting of our project. The end users and even the general public interest, because a lot of public interests are getting to the certain projects which have been implemented on the local and interlocal level. As I have mentioned to you, different regions can make different representatives of the common goal projects, can make the implementation on the cross-region space, and then influence it at the national level. Then we will have the national government agencies influence us. So that's why external factors are making the construction sphere of outside reality over our project. The internal influences include the organization's management, the project team, which have been constructed, which have been formulated, which we have been talking about, internal departments, technical and financial, and also related with the communication, and possibly the shareholders of the projects, which we can rely on, which we can use their knowledge for implementation of the project. And here, important role of the internal influences over the environment components. That's actually the internal departments and their style of the communication. As we have discussed at the previous questions, especially when we are talking about the influence, the sphere of influence of the project manager, I have mentioned to you that one of the important, and you I guess understood, that's actually the communication field. So that's why the style of the communication on the technical sphere and the financial sphere, it's important for the internal influence and the way how to change it for the proper vision, for the proper understanding of the project. That's the importance for the evaluation of such internal influence as the internal department structure. We can organize all this influence to the style of the analysis, which has the acronym PSTLE, PASTEL analysis. It's neatly encapsulated. All these spheres of the influence are neatly encapsulated by this acronym PASTEL. As you can understand, acronym get the starting letters of the spheres which we can discuss on. The first P, it's political interest, political influence over inside policy which we have, and outside reality, outside social environment. Economic, it stays for E, it stays for the second letter of this acronym, and it correlates with the economic situation, it correlates with the resources which we're supposed to use during the implementation, and of course the value of the product, the value of the social value of the services which we can provide for the certain community or for the certain market if we are talking about the medical service. The S states for social, and while it's in the middle, this term, this part of the influence, this part of the component of the project environment plays an important role for, once more, inside analysis and outside analysis of the reality. As I have mentioned to you, as you have discussed during the first practical classes, the social formation, the way how you can make unite your group, how you can make unite your project team, it's important for the analysis. And if you have an experience in such a construction, that's good. If you are making the first step, it's also good because you wouldn't press over the certain prejudgments. T stay for the technique of the product itself, the way how we are making the service, the way how we are making the product, and the technique also for the style of the implementation of the project, because the technique part is also correlated with the project team activity. It's also correlated with the project team sphere. Of course, L states for the legal part, which I have mentioned to you on the national or the local level of the influence over your project implementation. For sure, for the legal analysis you will need outside analytics group or outside partner, shareholder of your interest of the project. Maybe it will be for free, provided by the shareholders of our project. Maybe we're supposed to include the salary for the legal expert at our budgeting system, at our budgeting of the project. Actually, before the environmental questions were raised, the acronym finished with the 5 letters. Right now, the letter final E added as the environmental problem. That's because the raising of the social group effect on the implementation of the project. Environment not just is the sphere of ecology, but also the environment as a sphere, in our case, in the case of the medical services, the environment over the social diseases and the way how people can use our product and how it's influenced the society. The stakeholders' relationships to the project can vary from the very supportive, if we are getting full support from the stakeholders, if our project get the implementation, if our project get the relationship to the stakeholders goals, to the downright antagonistic. But depending on their field of influence, they must be considered and managed. For sure, the managing of the stakeholders relation, that's one of the components at the environment changing, at the environment management itself. As we can see, stakeholders relations can rely on the all spheres which we have been mentioned, maybe except the legal one, because legal is quite stable thing. It's quite conservative in the sense that we couldn't change it, and stakeholders could not just have changes in the sphere of legalcy. But the politicians, political sphere, economic sphere, social sphere, technical sphere, and sphere of environment can actually change, and from this very supportive to the downright antagonistic. And we're supposed to consider these changes, we're supposed to consider this type of the attitude. It's vital for the understanding, while we understand the project environment's components, that financial models and proven accountancy techniques are applied during the evaluation phase to ensure the economic viability of the project, and the financial models of the budgeting will also help us to create efficient type of the managing our finance. The decision to abort the whole project at any stage after the design stage is clearly not taken lightly. But once the economic argument has been lost, it may be a better option in the end to cancel the project, to overcome with the end of the project itself. It's also because we can stay all our components of the project environment on this economic level, we, as far as we can make it more proficiency, more efficient, and listed all types of the economic spheres. This abort of the whole project could not happen, and actually at the end, at the final stage, we can evaluate how actually we foresaw the influence of economic components and what were their import to our situation, to the situation of the project implementation. It's also vital for the project implementation as the part of the project environments component to inform the residents of the social region, so this means this social level at the PESTEL analysis, in the affected areas as early as possible of the intent, purpose and benefits of the project to the organization and to community. This may require a public relations campaign, and I have underlined it to you. Public relations campaign, it's supposed to be initiated when we are talking about the social interests, when we are talking about such a component as increasing of the support from the society, from the big social group of the region for our project. Exploratory discussion can also be the part of our public relations campaign to implement while we are implementing the project. Consultations at various levels and possible trade-offs of our product. It goes without saying that unless the project is technically sound, it will end in failure. One more reason why technique sphere have been implemented to the PESTEL analysis. Whether the project involves rolling out a new medical service product, the technology must be in place or be developed as the work proceeds campaign, as the work proceed part of the time scheduling and the scheduling of the implementation. For sure, the technological level as one of the important components of the project environment relies on the internal and external factors. That's what you're supposed to stays on, and you're supposed to come to the certain correlation between these two levels. What will help us to understand the internal and external factors more precisely, step by step, right, point by point, it's actually another type of the ability which will help us to create the picture, to create the global picture of our plan. It's called SWOT analysis, SWOT. It's also an acronym that stands for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities and threats. An environmental aspects of a project has an organized list of social, community, business and personal greatest strengths, weaknesses, opportunities and threats. Strengths and weaknesses are internal to the project making institution, internal to the project activity, to the implementation of the project. It can be reputation, patterns, location of our project, the style of the thinking, the way of the information, the project team. You can change them over time, but not without some work, because the changing of the internal factors, they need also the psychological influence and the level of the leadership inside the group. Opportunities and threats are external factors which we couldn't influence on directly. Such factors can be the labor resource for the implementation of the project. It can be the suppliers of the product. It can be competitors on the same field of the social interests. And of course, as I have mentioned to you, very conservative legal basement, and of course the political factors which influence the adoption of the certain legal act. They are out there in the social environment and happening whether you like it or not. It's not under our control. You couldn't change them and you can't influence them, as I told you, directly. Only through the communication, only through getting the competitors on our side, or only through while we understand the role and interests of the suppliers. Let's think about all these 4 parts of the SWOT analysis step by step. Strengths: describe the positive attributes, tangible and intangible, internal to your project team. They are with your own control. They are things which you can use to increase the level of the influence, the level of the influential part inside the team, and also for the project implementation. This strength part, they are reliable on, first of all, the knowledge which we have and the information inside the team. Weaknesses are aspects of your social project that detract from the value you offer or place you at a competitive disadvantage. You need to enhance these areas in order to compete with your best competitors. For sure, the weaknesses is one of the point of the human being, and that's as far as our project plan we get in the interest of the human being in the social level. That's the part of our project environment component. The weaknesses are part of our nature, a part of the nature of the project team. So that's why I think about them and tell them as clear as possible. Be liberal over your weaknesses, because then it will help you to change them into your strength. Let's come to external factors, and one of the first of the SWOT, that's opportunities. That's the positive supporters of our team. It's the positive supporters, stakeholders of our project implementation. Attractive factors that represent reasons your social projects is likely to achieve its mission. And threats. It's more complicated to state, because it's more complicated to say directly what are the threats, but it's still need of to make the list of the threats. It includes external factors beyond your control that could place your strategy at risk. As I have mentioned to you, the risk management starts from the list of the threats which you're supposed to make during the SWOT analysis, SWOT analysis. You have no control over this, but you may benefit by having contingency plans to address them if they should occur, or make the strategy planning of the overcome to protect your inside nature, to protect your internal factors and results of your project implementation through these threads. To get the most complete and objective results, a SWOT analysis is best conducted by a group of people, as we are working right now, and you will work during the further implementations of the projects. And it's important, because while you are sharing information, especially on this SWOT analysis, you will hear the voice of others, and you will see the real inside spirit of those group members. And you remember one of the strength or weakness point as the internal factors, that's the knowledge of our team. With different perspectives, the group of people can see the perspectives from see the real options from different perspectives and stakes in your project team. And for sure, it's important that the group of people, as I have mentioned to you, is supposed to be united in the certain goal which have been proclaimed, a certain vision of the product as the global goal. A SWOT analysis is typically, if we're talking about industrial style, conducted using a 4-square SWOT analysis template. But you could also just make a list for each category. But it's better, it's more optional to make a 4-square SWOT analysis template and implement and fulfill these all 4 parts into this 4-square template. Using the method that makes it easiest for you to organize and understand the result, it's actually use this 4-square SWOT analysis template. Also, and it's important. It's the part of the practice which I have faced on. It's to make a letter plus number chart of interconnection between 4 sectors: SWOT, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. This will provide your team the scope for checking dates in future activity, because you can use this letter plus number chart for the implementation for as the part of the time scheduling. Well, that's what we will talk about on our next lecture. And the way that you will use it, you will correlate letter plus number chart between each other part. And for example, like you have weak knowledge of the legal influence in the certain medical service, but the outside the opportunities will be that there is close to you in close office specialized team of the lawyers who are inside this medical law. So you will make this letter plus number correlation. And for sure, this letter and number chart will help you also to create the link between all parts of your project team. These components, these project environment components, supposed to correlate with the project team members. As you walk through each category, don't be too concerned about elaborating at first. Just bullet points may be the best way to begin. Just putting them as the list, as the bullet points, and then correlate it. Just capture the factors you believe are relevant in each of the four areas, and then make this letter plus number chart to make it more obvious. For the conclusion concerning the environment, concerning the project's environment components, we're supposed to first of all understand that environment impact to the project during the various phases from inception to final handover could not be overcome, and that's why the environmental impact factors supposed to clearly identify during the whole stages of your project implementation. The second conclusion, that the public relations campaign to be initiated and supposed to be initiated to explain these components, to adopt the project to social needs and expectations inside the social grouping and inside of your project team. And the third conclusion, that using of the SWOT analysis is typically conducted and using a Foursquare SWOT analysis template will help you to make the global picture of your social environment components. So that is why the home task, the same as it was for the first lecture, for the second lecture, is to create a SWOT analysis first glance chart. And here during the practical classes we will talk step by step on the way how to make a letter plus number chart to create the correlation between these 4 squares of the SWOT analysis. Thank you for the vision of mission of the project which you made during the first practical classes. Now let's come to the SWOT analysis and discussion of that during the practical classes as the field of not just research but also field of the practical implementation of the project. Thank you for your attention.